both of them can maintain celibacy for the rest of their lives. A man, of course, can have many wives, that is there, but he is supposed to maintain all of them also. So all of that becomes very entangling, too disturbing. And therefore, Prabhupada's basic policy was no divorce. That's all. Let us not get into this whole mess. It is sinful activity. It's a big mess. So naturally, all bona fide spiritual masters will give instructions to that effect only. There's no other one. Don't touch other. Don't engage in duties. Accept. You have your marriage duties. Accept these marriage duties. What is that? Accept your marriage duties. Come to the mode of goodness. Use your intelligence. Understand. We are meant to become free from the cycle of burden. So some jnana component will naturally come in. Focus on devotional service. Gradually make spiritual progress. Everything will go. All these problems will disappear.
Maybe this is a way to induce others to follow the Varna instruction, which is when we say that Srila Prabhupada, when we explain to them that Srila Prabhupada wanted it, and these devotees have faith in Srila Prabhupada and his instruction, they will follow.
Fine. Fine. It takes time. It takes time. It takes time. There's also the matter of taste. If I have a desire to progress in Krishna consciousness, then I'll be inclined to listen. If I don't have a desire to progress in Krishna consciousness, then I won't be inclined to listen. One has to be willing to progress from Shraddha to Prem. You cannot, how can a doctor help a patient who doesn't want to follow the course of treatment? How can you help someone? In English, we have a proverb. You can lead a horse to the water, but you cannot make the horse drink the water. So you can only help those who agree to be helped. What else can be done with this? One thing that is very clear is even these ordinary Varnashrama duties, it is already like half renunciation. It's like half sannyas only. You cannot do this, you cannot do this. For women, so many restrictions, for man, so many restrictions. The very institution of marriage itself is a form of renunciation. Because always one will come across, or in reality also, there's always some woman better than one's wife. And there is always some man better than one's husband. But when you marry, see, all marriages, Bhaktivinoda Thakur also points out, all marriages happen in the presence of God or God's relatives, in any God's representative. Find in the church, they do, Christians, Muslims also, some. It is always connected with the Supreme Godhead. Because there in a marriage, three persons are involved. It is not a binding between a man and a woman. It's a binding between man, woman, and God. So it's a three. Just like sometimes companies are made out of three people. Then two people don't like each other means what? If third person says, no, I want, that's all. I don't want to break the company. So this all requires more mature understanding. So that has to be given to them. They need to be made to understand. See, you deserve this woman, you deserve this man. That is why you got together. Misery has to come through someone. So it comes through on the spouse. In addition to, it'll anyway come, you cannot do anything. All of this has to be taught. So all bona fide spiritual masters will teach like that. Let's move on. Text 35.
Shreyan swadharmo vidhine paradharma satsva anustita swadharme vidvanam shreya paradharmo vayavaho. It is far better to discharge one's prescribed duties, even though faulty, than another's duty perfectly. Destruction in the course of performing one's own duty is better than engaging in another's duty, for to follow another's path is dangerous.
Here, Baladev Vidyabhushana, he explains that Arjuna might be thinking, you have said that we should give up the proclivities of desire and hatred arising from our natures that are common to animals and engage in dharma according to scripture. Now, this is something Sri Baladeva Vidyabhushana brings about elsewhere also. On one hand, we have our conditioned nature. On the other hand, we have Krishna's instruction in the form of Shastra. What do you want to do? You want to follow your conditioned nature? We all like certain things, we dislike certain things. This is our conditioned nature. On the other hand, there is Shastra. Shastra is containing its own prescriptions and prohibitions. That is Krishna's instruction. So the Jivatma always has to decide, should I follow Shastra or should I follow my conditioned nature? If I follow conditioned nature, I am rejecting Shastra. If I am following Shastra, then gradually I am rejecting my conditioned nature. Gradually my conditioned nature, I will not be bothered about. Okay, common to animals and engage in dharma according to scripture. This tendency should disappear with the purification of the heart through following the duties of dharma. Dharmas of both fighting and non-violence are stated in the scriptures. So, when we talk about dharma, dharma is that which is taught in the Vedic scripture. Okay. Veda pranihito dharma, kya dharmas tad viparyaya. That which is taught in the Veda, that is dharma. That which is forbidden in the Veda, that is adharma. But the Vedic scripture not only says that you should engage in war, the Vedic scripture also talks about non-violence. So that Arjuna has in his mind. Because I cannot perform fighting devoid of desire and hatred, the dharma of non-violence with subsistence by gathering surplus grains is superior to fighting for me. So then, for me to follow warfare and so on seems very difficult. On the other hand, why I cannot accept ahimsa, non-violence? Brahmanas were also allowed to gather surplus grains from the fields. If the wind blows away grains, okay, those grains are kept separately. They don't usually sell them. But some Brahmana may come and beg, it is given to them. That is called uncha vritti, shiloncha. And Bhagavatam also says that is one of the vows which can be accepted. So Arjuna has in his mind, why can't I do something like that? So then Lord Krishna now begins to point out, no, there is something called swadharma, there is something called paradharma. Para means somebody else. Swa means own. Swadharma means my own dharma. And paradharma means somebody else's dharma. So that comes up for consideration. Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Thus, considering Nishkama Karma Yoga offered to me, it is better for the bound jiva to perform swadharma, even if faulty. Performing others' dharma, paradharma, though done excellently, is not proper. While observing swadharma, if one dies before attaining a higher dharma, this also produces auspiciousness, since performing others' dharma is not without fear in all cases. But if one develops nirguna bhakti, there is no. But if one develops, no, there is no objection to giving up swadharma. Since then, the jiva's eternal dharma manifests as one swadharma, and conditional swadharma becomes others' dharma. So until one attains a spiritual status, one should not give up one's own duties and try to perform someone else's duties. One should therefore discharge his prescribed duties in full Krishna consciousness rather than those prescribed for others. Materially prescribed duties are duties enjoined according to one's psychophysical condition under the spell of the modes of material nature. Spiritual duties are as ordered by the spiritual master for the transcendental service of Krishna. But whether material or spiritual, one should stick to his prescribed duties even up to death, rather than imitate another's prescribed duties. Duties on the spiritual platform and duties on the material platform may be different, but the principle of following the authorized direction is always good for the performer. When one is under the spell of the modes of material nature, one should follow the prescribed rules for his particular situation and should not imitate others. For example, a Brahmana who is in the mode of goodness is non-violent, whereas a Kshatriya who is in the mode of passion is allowed to be violent. As such, for a Kshatriya, it is better to be vanquished following the rules of violence than to imitate a Brahmana who follows the principles of non-violence. Everyone has to cleanse his heart by a gradual process, not abruptly. However, when one transcends the modes of material nature and is fully situated in Krishna consciousness, he can perform anything and everything under the direction of a bona fide spiritual master. In that complete stage of Krishna consciousness, the Kshatriya may act as a Brahmana, or a Brahmana may act as a Kshatriya. In the transcendental state, the distinctions of the material world do not apply. For example, Vishwamitra was originally a Kshatriya, but later on he acted as a Brahmana, whereas Parashurama was a Brahmana, but later on he acted as a Kshatriya. Being transcendently situated, they could do so. But as long as one is on the material platform, he must perform his duties according to the modes of material nature. At the same time, he must have a full sense of Krishna consciousness. So when it says that you should engage in karma, it means you should engage in swadharma, one's own duties. Not one starts following somebody else's karma dharma. One should not execute somebody else's material dharma. One should execute one's own material dharma. 36.
Arjuna Vacha Napatina Prajatoyam Papancharichi Purushaha Manishvana Vivashnaya Balavidayam Vidaha. Arjuna said, O descendant of Vishnu, by what is one impelled to sinful acts, even unwittingly, as if engaged by faith?
In verse 34, the Lord indicated that desire, raga, such as speaking to others' wives, is firmly fixed in the senses and mind. Arjuna now asks a question concerning this. Here in this, Arjuna said, O descendant of the Vrishnis, by what does man engage in sin, though unwilling? You said that the jiva is an eternal, pure particle of consciousness, different from all material gunas and relationships. It is thus not the jiva's nature to commit sin in the material world, but it is seen that the jivas always commit sins. Thus, please tell me clearly, what engages the jiva in sin? Arjuna's question to Krishna is very sanguine, means very reasonable, as to the perverted nature of the living entities. Although the living entity sometimes does not want to act in sin, he is still forced to act. Sinful actions are not, however, impelled by the super soul within, but are due to another cause, as the Lord explains in the next verse. 37.
Is that only gone back to the material mode of action, and responding to that, and you see that all the meaning of this word.
Hearing the question, the Lord said, O Arjuna, it is lust arising from Rajoguna which engages man in sin. The swarupa of lust or kama is desire for sense objects caused by ancient impressions. Kama, taking another form, becomes anger. Kama, taking shelter of Rajoguna, arises. And when there is an obstacle to attaining a desire, it takes shelter of Tamoguna and becomes anger. Kama is most ferocious and devours everyone. In Jnana Yoga, know that Kama is the chief enemy of the jiva. Baladev Vijayabhushana gives a quotation which is very interesting. Yet Prithiviyam Vrihi Yavam Hiranyam Pashavastriyam Nalam Ekasya Tatsarvam Mitimatva Shamam Braja. Understanding that all that is available on earth in the form of food, gold, animals, and women is not enough for one person. One should go about with peaceful mind. No amount of woman is enough. That other one is very sweet. No amount of food is enough, but that is very tasty. No amount of money is enough. It is never enough. Always it is never enough. Because Durlabho Abhilashati Manorathaha. The mind always hankers after that which you don't have. You don't have one woman, so you want her, so you're married. Now she is, now you have, no, you don't hanker for it. Now you hanker for something else. Now you think about, now it's time to become rich. Okay. You don't have money, so you want money. Then you get money. Now you have money, you're not satisfied. Whatever you hanker for, the mind wants more. The mind has a disease of more. It wants more. So when lust is satisfied, it becomes greed. It's a headache. When lust is not satisfied, then it becomes anger. It becomes anger towards whichever prevented that lust from being satisfied. Both ways, it's trouble. If you satisfy it, it becomes greed. It wants more. If it is not satisfied, then somebody stopped it. There is always somebody. Either somebody stopped it or you imagine somebody has stopped it. Okay. And you become angry towards that somebody. Damned if you do, damned if you don't, in either case. So knowing that this is the nature, one should go about with a peaceful mind. Meaning that you should understand that there's no point in going forward in this manner. Lust is the greatest enemy of the living entity, and it is lust only which induces the pure living entity to remain entangled in the material world. Wrath is the manifestation of the mode of ignorance. The Supreme Personality of Godhead expanded himself into many for his ever-increasing spiritual bliss, and the living entities are parts and parcels of the spiritual bliss. They also have partial independence, but by misuse of their independence, when the service attitude is transformed into the propensity for sense enjoyment, they come under the sway of lust. This material creation is created by the Lord to give facility to the conditioned souls to fulfill these lustful propensities. And when completely baffled by prolonged lustful activities, the living entities begin to inquire about their real position. Lust can be utilized in Krishna service. Kama Krishna Karmarpane, Krodha Bhakta Dveshi Jane, and so on. So, if one's passion needs to be used somewhere, it can be utilized in Krishna service and Krishna's mission and so on. So that nature that can be utilized. In fact, there are unlimited services you can render in. My God. Just turn it on. Just turn it on. Sorry. There are unlimited number of services that can be executed in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission. So many things. So many things. So those who are passionate, they want to do different things. Unlimited number of things. Bhanu Maharaj used to say that if a brahmachari is perpetually engaged in ever creative, innovative, new services, new challenges, there's no reason for him to get married at all. There's always something different, something new, something different, new challenge every 3 years, something different, different place you go, different. Always something. And there are so many things like that. How many things we can execute in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission? Practically speaking, the way Prabhupada has given us the scheme, whether you are in Tamoguna, Rajoguna, Satoguna, totally transcendental also. There is something available for you. Hundreds of things, hundreds of any activity that you want to do practically for that can be dealt in. Only sinful activities, offenses, we need to open. Other than that, the whole world is open. You like painting, that's something. You like writing, that's something. You like physical activity, that is something. You like to boss over people, that's something. You think about it, any sinless, offenseless activity can be utilized in the service of Lord Chaitanya. And that too, the Varnashram scheme is also a very decent scheme. This, taking into account that the society is to be given the maximum importance. The individual is not given most important. In today's civilization, modern civilization, the individual is considered most important. Whereas in Vedic civilization, society is given the most important thing. Today's world, everyone wants to express himself or herself, and everyone wants to become the king or queen. Vedic society is not like that. Sarve sukhino bhavantu. Let everyone be happy. And you are basically trained to do Jagat Seva. You say everything, now Brahmana. You function as a Brahmana, benefits the community. Function as a Kshatriya, benefits the community. Function as a Vaishya, benefits community. Function as a Shudra, benefits community. Similarly, the duties of Brahmachari, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, everything is a service to community. Women, that they have to control themselves and serve their husbands. Service to society, service to community. Well, everywhere the community comes first. First is community, second is family, only third is the individual. Because that's how you build. This is what is the great Samaj Nirman thing that we keep hearing every now and then. All these nationalist people keep talking about it. They need to construct a new society, new India, which will be the guru of the world. Fine. Well, it starts at home. It starts at your own place. We accept our Swadharma. Materially, it organizes. See, if you have a Kshatriya who is trained in Varnashram principles, he knows the law. He knows how to implement it also. That is far better than in today's world, where army is somewhere, and then judiciary somewhere, homeland security somewhere. Everything is different, and they're quarreling among themselves also. Now, what is this? So, this other method of organization is far superior, far superior. Okay, next. Lust is what? Lust. Intense material desire without which we cannot function. Ramanujacharya has explained in the other place. We saw no? The fall down of Falguvera. There's a fall down sequence now. How does it begin? Jayata Vishyantacha Sangaseshu Vijayate Sangat Sanjayate Kama. And then Kama Kolo Vijayate. So there Ramanujacharya has explained what is Kama. Kama is that degree of desire that if you don't fulfill, you're unable to stand, you're unable to function, which is dysfunctional. You need that. You need it. Like sometimes children and all, they cry. I need it. I need it. I need it. That's all. So adults also cry. I need it. Why? I don't know. I need it. I need that phone. I need that girl. I need this much money. I need this position. I need it. Without that, I cannot function. So that is kama. Lust is the proper word. The original word kama is also proper. Kama and lust both have a connotation of sexual activity. Okay, primarily in both Sanskrit and English. But both of them refer to intense desire. Just as when one's sexual desire is aroused, one is unable to stop it now. Whether man or woman. When one is sexually aroused, he is unable to stop it. It's just in the fire. It's just... So that is the right word to describe. Vasana. Vasana is a propensity. Vasana comes first. And then it grows. Then there is Sangha. Sangha means attachment. Attachment means emotional attachment. You keep thinking about it again and again. You keep thinking, you go somewhere, you see in a shop something. You saw it now, again and again, it comes to it. That is Sangha stage. First of all, there is dhyana. Dhyayato Vishyantacha. First, there is dhyana. You're thinking about it every now and then. But Sangha is uninterrupted thought. It is that object consciousness. Like uninterruptedly you're thinking. Then it develops into kama. Kama means you are unable to function without it. And then kama will lead to krodha. Because something will happen. All said and done, even if you get it, you are going to grow old, you'll die. So again, you lost it. Then you will become angry. What? Angry at whom? Angry at God? I don't know what. You will become angry. So it will happen.
How belonging with that one disagreement from the society was saying that.
And he was already in Bhava Bhakti from previous life. Otherwise, how? Of course, girlfriends, wives, they always shout and scream. And generally, it's considered very sweet and relishable. But because he was a Bhava Bhakta from past, it is basically Krishna speaking through her. You belong to me, not this. So, okay, let's move forward. Yeah.
As fire is covered by smoke, as the mirror is covered by dust, or as the embryo is covered by the womb. Similarly, the living entity is covered by different degrees of blood.
Examples of smoke, dust, and womb are given to illustrate three stages of karma's influence: slight, medium, and intense. This karma sometimes covers the world in a restricted form, and sometimes in profound form, and sometimes in the most profound form. I will give examples. Please listen. Like fire covered by smoke, the conscious jiva covered in a limited way by karma can perform actions like remembrance of the Lord. In this position, the jiva takes shelter of Nishkama Karma Yoga, which has the form of budding consciousness. Like a mirror covered by dirt, the conscious jiva covered densely by karma cannot remember the Supreme Ishvara even when situated as a human being. The jiva in this position with restricted consciousness is very atheistic and immoral. You remember in the stages of humanity, there is atheistic morality. Such persons are like birds and animals. Like the embryo covered by the womb, the conscious jiva covered most thickly by karma becomes a tree or other lower forms of life. So you have subhumans, you have animalistic humans, and then you have humans. So this is all talking about the long-term effect of lust. Long-term effect of lust. There are 3 degrees of covering of the living entity by which his pure consciousness is obscured. When lust is compared to smoke, it is understood that the fire of the living spark can be little perceived. This stage is like the beginning of Krishna consciousness. So in this way, there are different degrees of covering. Fire covered by smoke, mirror covered by dust, embryo covered by the womb. The embryo covered by the womb is an analogy illustrating a helpless position for the child in the womb is so helpless that he cannot even move. This stage of living condition can be compared to that of the trees. The trees are also living entities, but they have been put into such a condition of life by such a great exhibition of lust that they are almost void of all consciousness. In the form of a human being, the living entity may revive a little Krishna consciousness. And if he makes further development, the fire of spiritual life can be kindled in the human form of life. Text 39.
This rising becomes covered by eternal in the form of lust. It is never satisfied and is burned by fire.
This verse clarifies the meaning of the previous verse. It is said in the Manusmriti that lust cannot be satisfied by any amount of sense enjoyment. Just as fire is never extinguished by a constant supply of fuel. Bhakti Thakur. This karma is the jiva's ignorance. It is his eternal enemy, like an irrepressible fire. It covers the conscious jiva like unsatisfied fire. Now, in the Vedic system, karma not only refers to sexual lust, even sexual lust that is not restricted to only sexual activity. Everything, the whole thing put together is what is known as lust, passion, fulfillment of passion. The desire for sound, touch, form, taste, smell, everything put together. So we don't disconnect. In today's world, they will say, they used to say, no longer, they used to say that sexual activity before marriage is wrong. Kissing is okay. Whereas it just seems funny from the Vedic point of view, because it's just one leading to another, to another, to another. It's like saying you can go inside a restaurant, but only the first section of the restaurant. You cannot go, what? Next section is AC. At some point, they will go there also. So, in the Vedic system, we understand that karma implies everything. Everything is involved. The desire for sound, touch, form, taste, smell, everything. All of that is called karma. So that desire for sense enjoyment itself is the jiva's eternal need. Can someone please read the purport, Bhakti 39?
This karma is the jiva's ignorance. It is his eternal enemy, like an irrepressible fire. It covers the conscious jiva like unsatisfied fire. Just as I, the Lord, am a spiritual entity, the jiva is likewise a spiritual entity. The essential difference between us is that I am complete with all Shakti. The jiva is a particle of consciousness. He is capable of action by Shakti even by faith. The jiva's eternal dharma is to be my eternal servant. That is called prema or Nishkam Jaiva dharma. A conscious entity alone is by its nature independent. The pure Jiva by nature is independent. Thus, by its will, it is my eternal servant. Karma and ignorance are reversals of this pure independence. All jivas who do not accept to be my servant by their will accept this karma, which is far removed from the pure tattva of the jiva. By that gradually the jiva becomes covered and his covered consciousness becomes material life. This is called the jiva's bondage of karma or pains of samsara.
Advancement of material civilization on the basis of sense gratification means increasing the duration of the material existence of a living entity. Therefore, this lust is the symbol of ignorance by which the living entity is kept within the material world while one enjoys sense gratification. It may be that there is some feeling of happiness, but actually that so-called feeling of happiness is the ultimate enemy of the sense center. This is why lust is always considered to be the enemy, because an enemy previously and even now actually, if one country wants to fight with another country, there are different ways they accomplish it. Sometimes through spies, sometimes through war, open war. Through spies also many times whole kingdoms, countries have been destroyed. And an enemy may send a spy, some girl, and she may be the cause of the destruction of the entire kingdom. So everything looks very pleasant, and the dealings are very pleasant and sweet. But that pleasant and sweet nature, you should understand, is deceptive. Similarly, the happiness that is produced by lust, by combination of the senses and sense objects, that is always considered a enemy. You will come across this expression several times in study of Bhagavad Gita and the Vedic scriptures, Sakama and Nishkama. Sakama means with material desires, Nishkama, without material desires. So it is not just referring to the sexual lust. That is the center. We all know that is the central aspect of material existence. But everything else surrounding it, to give it a good atmosphere, that is also dangerous. Everything is dangerous. Very, very dangerous. And supplying butter to a fire does not diminish the fire, but instead increases it more and more. The endeavor to stop lusty desires by continual enjoyment can never be successful. In fact, one must voluntarily cease from material desires. 40.
Indriyani manavodi sarishtitam
Adhisthana.
because manayate vesa jnanam abrotakdhinam. The sense, the mind, and the intelligence are the sitting place of his laws. Though their laws cover the real knowledge of the living entity and build us him.
Since the enemy lust is already gained strongholds, it easily conquers. That is explained in this verse. The pure Jiva with the Swarup of knowledge is known as the Dehi. Dehi means the embodied soul, possessor of the body when he accepts a body. This karma covers the Jiva's knowledge by bases known as the senses, mind, and intelligence, and bewilders. When ignorance, the subtle principle of karma, first covers the Jiva, who is a particle of pure consciousness, having a sense of I with material ahankar. Material intelligence acts as its location. Then when material ahankar matures, it gives a second location in the form of the mind. The mind turning to material objects makes the senses as the third location. Taking shelter of these three locations, karma throws the jiva towards material sense objects. The jiva's turning towards me by free will is called knowledge, and turning away from me by free will is called ignorance. The enemy has captured different strategic positions in the body of the conditioned soul, and therefore Lord Krishna is giving hints of those places so that one who wants to conquer the enemy may know where he can be found. So everything starts with the mind. Mind is the center of all the activities of the senses, and thus when we hear about sense objects, the mind generally becomes a reservoir of all ideas of sense gratification. And as a result, the mind and the senses become the repositories of lust. Next, the intelligence department becomes the capital of such lustful propensities. Intelligence is the immediate next door neighbor of the spirit soul. Lusty intelligence influences the spirit soul to acquire the false ego and identify itself with matter. You people don't feel hot, even I'm feeling hot. Yeah, why don't you put the fan on? Don't worry about it. You will die if you worry about it. What is this? At least from a certain time, you should put it on. From third session onwards, put it on. Lusty intelligence influences the spirit soul to acquire the false ego and identify itself with matter, and thus with the mind and senses. The spirit soul becomes addicted to enjoying the material senses and mistakes this as true happiness. This false identification of the spirit soul is very nicely explained in the Srimad Bhagavatam. This is the second time Prabhupada is referring to this verse, but this time he has quoted the verse. Yasyatma buddhi punapet dhatuke swadhi kalatra vishubhavma ichyadhi yatirtha buddhi salalena karesha janeshva bhigyeshu saiva gokharaha. A human being who identifies his body made of three elements with his self, who considers the byproducts of the body to be his kinsmen, who considers the land of birth worshipable, and who goes to the place of pilgrimage simply to take a bath rather than meet men of transcendental knowledge there, is to be considered like an ass or a cow. This verse was actually spoken by Lord Krishna himself. Comes in 10th canto. Okay, 41.
Like, what is the difference between attachment and attachment? Attachment also are the same.
Wait. Open up. If anyone remembers that verse number? That second chapter. No. 62? एवं मयि अनिवेश्य मनः स्वयत्न गौरवेण इंद्रिय जय प्रवृत विनिष्टः भवति अनिरस्य विषय अनुरागस्य हि मयि अनिवेशित मनसः इंद्रियाणि संयम्य अवस्थितस्य अपि अनादिपापवासनया विषयध्यानम् अवर्जनीयं स्यात्. Okay, let's go step by step. For a person who has not given up his taste for sense objects and whose mind is not absorbed in me, even if he has controlled the senses, still, because of his sinful propensities from beginningless time, his meditation on sense objects will be unavoidable. Dhyayatah vishayan pumsaha punarapi sangaha atipravriddha jayate. By meditating on the sense objects, such a person, such a man, he will once again develop sangha, attachment. In other words, that becomes very greatly magnified. Sangat sanjayate kama. Then from that attachment, lust is born, kama is born. Kama nama sangasya vipakadasha. Kama is nothing but a matured stage of attachment. Purusho yam dasham apannaha vishayan abhuktva sthatum na shaknoti. Sa kama. That if a man has attained that stage of kama, then without enjoying the sense objects, he is unable to stand. That is called kama. So it is not just attachment. It is attachment that is addictive. I don't know what to call it. It's almost obsessive. You're unable to come. I saw the latest iPad ad. And without that, I cannot function. or the whole world is happy with iPad, and it is the latest iPad, and the advertisement is so good. And I'll use it in Krishna's service. This is all examples of karma. I'll die with it. It's one thing to keep thinking about it. It's another thing, now I'm not able to function. I'm not able to eat. I'm not able to do anything. This is come to the karma stage. It is not, it's started from dhyana. It's not spiritual dhyana, it's material dhyana. From dhyana, it moved to sangha, second stage. Then it moved to karma, third stage. It's progressed. Okay, 41. What happened? Again?
Therefore, Lord, knowledge of the particles, in the very beginning, God is the place in the seeing life. I will give him this and still in the desire of knowledge and self-respect.
Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Therefore, best of the Bharata lineage, first control the senses by Nishkama Karma Yoga and conquer this karma, the form of great sin which destroys jnana and vijnana, destroying this diseased condition, leading the jiva to its true nature. Take support of jiva surup composed of prema. The jiva is bound by matter should first observe swadharma and yuktavairagya. Then, after attaining sadhana bhakti, you will attain prema. Pure bhakti attained by mercy and devotee's mercy is most rare and also sometimes arises suddenly. The jiva bound by matter should first observe swadharma through karma yoga, and then after attaining sadhana bhakti, you will attain prema. Now, Prabhupada points out, jnana refers to knowledge of self as distinguished from non-self, or in other words, knowledge that the spirit soul is not the body. Vijnana refers to specific knowledge of the spirit soul's constitutional position and his relationship with the Supreme Soul. It is explained thus in the Srimad Bhagavatam 2.9.31. The knowledge of the self and the Supreme Self is very confidential and mysterious, but such knowledge and specific realization can be understood if explained with their various aspects by the Lord himself. Bhagavad Gita gives us that general and specific knowledge of the self. The living entities are parts and parcels of the Lord, and therefore they are simply meant to serve the Lord. This consciousness is called Krishna consciousness. So it is these two types of knowledge of the self that is destroyed by lust. Look at the first sentence of this purport. The Lord advises Arjuna to regulate the senses from the very beginning so that he could curb the greatest sinful enemy, lust, which destroys the urge for self-realization and specific knowledge of the self. So the moment we get into the desire to enjoy anything in this world, in the external world, it is considered a very great danger because it can destroy the very desire to attain spiritual realization. That very initial background, foundational desire that we have for spiritual progress, the desire to attain prema bhakti, the desire to attain pure sadhana bhakti, the desire to involve ourselves in all our various aspects of our life to make it favorable for sadhana bhakti. All of these desires will be destroyed. So in other words, the pursuit of spiritual realization is the exact opposite of the pursuit of material enjoyment. The two cannot go together. We cannot have both. Therefore, you notice this. Again and again, detachment and realization comes. Spiritual progress is only meaningful if we accept the principles of detachment, realization, and so on. I cannot think that let me also enjoy as much as possible materially, and let me also engage in spiritual life as much as possible. You cannot have both. You have to decide. If you want spiritual progress, then don't go for material progress. So two opposites. When love of God deteriorates into lust, it is very difficult to return to the normal condition. Nonetheless, Krishna consciousness is so powerful that even a late beginner can become a lover of God by following the regulatory principles of devotional service. So from any stage of life, or from the time of understanding its urgency, one can begin regulating the senses in Krishna consciousness, devotional service of the Lord, and turn the lust into love of God in the highest perfection stage of human life. 42.
The working senses are superior to the matter. Mind is higher than the physical. Intelligence is higher than the mind. And the soul is higher than the physical.
You have shown that lust can be destroyed by controlling the senses through inclining them to Nishkama Karma. This is like water held back by a closed dam. But at the time of performing activities related to the body while not performing prescribed actions with the freedom of action for the senses, lust will again revive like water freed from a dam. The Lord, this is what is in Arjuna's mind. So Krishna anticipates that and he speaks in 2 verses. The Lord shows in 2 verses what he taught before in chapter 2, that lust will be completely destroyed by realization of Atma. Rasopyasya param drishtva. Param drishtva nivartate. So there are 2 verses, text 42 and 43. So when will this karma, this all these material obsessions, when will they go away? They will go away when you attain spiritual realization. Otherwise, they may come back. Okay. In Krishna consciousness, the soul makes direct connection with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, the hierarchy of bodily functions as described here ultimately ends in the Supreme Soul. Bodily action means the functions of the senses. And stopping the senses means stopping all bodily actions. But since the mind is active, then even though the body may be silent and at rest, the mind will act as it does during dreaming. But above the mind is the determination of the intelligence, and above the intelligence is the soul proper. If therefore the soul is directly engaged with the Supreme, naturally all other subordinates, namely the intelligence, mind and senses, will be automatically engaged. In the Katha Upanishad, there is a similar passage in which it is said that the objects of sense gratification are superior to the senses, and mind is superior to the sense objects. If therefore the mind is directly engaged in the service of the Lord constantly, then there's no chance that the senses will become engaged in other ways. This mental attitude has already been explained. Param drishtva nivartate. If the mind is engaged in the transcendental service of the Lord, there is no chance of its being engaged in the lower propensities. With intelligence, one has to seek out the constitutional position of the soul and then engage the mind always in Krishna consciousness. That solves the whole problem. So the idea is that when we take to spiritual life, we should be aware and we should keep reminding ourselves that I need to realize these subjects. One of the reasons why we are trained to engage in sattvic activities and study the scriptures that promote liberation or love of God, one of the reasons why we engage in this is we need to remind ourselves of this on a regular basis, privately and publicly. Otherwise, the intelligence is not utilized for that purpose. The intelligence is wasted for enhancing our material enjoyment. And neophyte spiritualists is generally advised to keep aloof from the objects of the senses. But aside from that, one has to strengthen the mind by use of intelligence. Out of sight, out of mind. You keep it out of sight, then you can keep it out of mind. But even though the soul is the master of intelligence and mind, and the senses also, still, unless it is strengthened by association with Krishna and Krishna consciousness, there is every chance of falling down due to the agitated mind. Ultimately, we cannot depend on this mechanism of the body, the external body. 43.
Thus knowing oneself to be constant with the material concepts, mind and intelligence, so mighty armed by him, steady combined by The way that it's not. And then I think you can comfortably inside your own mind.
Thus, understanding your spiritual tattva and knowing yourself to be servant of the Lord, superior to material variety and non-variety, steadying yourself by Chit Shakti, Atma Shakti, destroy the invincible karma, which is a form of ignorance contrary to the spiritual principle, taking support of the gradual method. Hearing the conclusions of the previous chapter, a doubt arose in Arjuna's mind. If the method of karma alone produces understanding of the Atma's true nature, it is better to take support of this understanding at once, with the intention of removing this doubt, showing that the jiva who has attained the material body cannot avoid karma, that it is necessary that he engage in karma, that one must have an attraction for Atma, that one must engage in swadharma, that one must control the strong senses which produce akarma and vikarma, and that karma yoga is the only means of conquering material karma. The Lord ascertains that one must practice karma yoga in the form of offering it to the Lord. There is also a deliberation on the uselessness of attempting to renounce karma when in an immature state and to control the senses and mind separately. Ramanujacharya has also made an interesting remark. He says the activities of the mode of goodness, the jnana activities that we refer to, they are so different from the usual activities of sense enjoyment that we are used to since millions of lifetimes. We are used to just plain old sense enjoyment. We want to bring the senses and the sense objects in contact. It's just ordinary sense enjoyment. Whether you accept the restricted version or unrestricted version, both of them are sense enjoyment. So to abruptly tell a person to engage in the combination of karma jnana bhakti, where jnana gets most of the time, that will be very, very difficult for a conditioned soul, because he is used to, since so many lifetimes, he is used to sense enjoyment. Now, within the karma set of activities, there is a combination of senses and sense objects. So he says, therefore, it is better to promote that combination of karma jnana bhakti, where karma gets most of the time. Karma yoga is far better, because in case he slips, he will slip only inside a field of activities which involves the senses and sense objects. In other words, far better. Now, if you just tell the person that you should only think about spirituality, philosophy, this, that, it doesn't go into his head. He gets bored, he gets distracted. It backfires many times. Even with Bhakti Yoga, we have a number of people over years, they start thinking about sense enjoyment. No matter how much you tell, you find it very, very difficult. Bhakti is actually more demanding. If karma is more demanding than adharma, if jnana is more demanding than dharma, then certainly bhakti is more demanding. Only thing, you execute it correctly, the result comes almost instantaneously. Quickly you realize, like chanting. You sit and chant immediately, the mind becomes peaceful. It's not similarly you engage in deity worship with appropriate respect. You do everything properly, immediately the mind becomes peaceful. That's one thing I need to check. Let's see. What is this? No. Chapter verse number 43. Transcript by mistake. Nishkamam karma mukhyam syat gaunam jnanam tad udbhavam Jivatma Drishtau Vityesha Tritiyodhyaya Nirnayaha. from the lesson to be learned from the third chapter is that in the activity of Nishkama Karma, the activity is considered primary, and the spiritual knowledge or realization that comes out of that activity, that is considered secondary. And that everything will culminate in the realization of the Jivatma himself. That is pointed out here. Hearing the conclusions of the previous chapter, a doubt arose in Arjuna's mind. So Arjuna was not very clear, but Lord Krishna has clarified it. Prabhupada also has summarized chapter 3. This third chapter of the Bhagavad Gita is conclusively directive to Krishna consciousness by knowing oneself as the eternal servitor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead without considering impersonal voidness, the ultimate end. In the material existence of life, one is certainly influenced by propensities for lust and desire for dominating the resources of the desire for overloading and for sense gratification is the greatest enemy of the conditioned soul. But by the strength of Krishna consciousness, one can control the material senses, the mind, and the intelligence. One may not give up work and prescribed duties all of a sudden, but by gradually developing Krishna consciousness, one can be situated in a transcendental position without being influenced by the material senses and the mind, by steady intelligence directed toward one's pure identity. This is the sum total of this chapter. In the immature stage of material existence, philosophical speculations and artificial attempts to control the senses by the so-called practice of yogic postures can never help a man towards spiritual life. He must be trained in Krishna consciousness by higher intelligence. Okay, then we come to the next chapter, fourth chapter. Transcendental knowledge. Prabhupada has given that name for this chapter. Turiye Swabhivyakti. Okay, here it comes. Someone should read out the verse and translation.
Shri Bhagavan Vacha Vidvan personality of Godhead, Lord Shri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, Lord Shri Krishna said, I instructed this imperishable science of yoga to the sun god, Vidvan, and Vidvan instructed it to Manu, the father of mankind, and Manu in turn instructed it to Shwaku. Perfect. Herein, we find the history of the Bhagavad Gita traced from a remote time when it was delivered to a royal order of all planets, beginning from the sun planet. The kings of all planets are specially named for the protection of the inhabitants, and therefore the royal order should understand the science of Bhagavad Gita in order to be able to rule the citizens, protect them from material bondage to lust. Human life is meant for cultivation of spiritual knowledge, an eternal relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the executive heads of all states and all planets are obliged to impart these lessons to the citizens by education, culture, and devotion. In other words, the executive heads of all states are intended to correct the science of Krishna consciousness, so that the people may take advantage of this great science and pursue a successful path, utilizing the opportunity of the human form. In this millennium, the sun god, known as Vidvan, the king of the sun, which is the origin of all planets within the solar system. In Brahma Samhita, it is stated, so, let me worship Lord Brahma said, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Govinda, Krishna, who is the original person and under whose order the sun, which is the king of all planets, is assuming immense power and heat. The sun represents the eye of the Lord and traverses its obedience to his order. The sun is the king of the planet, the sun god, the present of the name Vidvan,
rules the sun planet, which is controlling all other planets by supplying heat and light. He is rotating under the order of Krishna. Lord Krishna originally made Vidvan his first disciple to understand the science of Bhagavad Gita. The Gita is not therefore a speculative treatise for the insignificant mundane scholar, but it is standard book of knowledge coming down from fact. In the Mahabharata, we can trace out the history of Gita as follows. In the beginning of the millennium, known as the Treta Yuga, the science, this science of the relationship with Supreme was delivered by Vidvan to Manu. Manu, being the father of mankind, gave it to his son, Maharaj Vishwakarma, the king of this planet and the forefather of Raghu dynasty, in which Lord Ramchandra appeared. Therefore, Bhagavad Gita existed in human society from the time of Maharaj Vishwakarma. At the present moment, we have just passed through 5,000 years of Kali Yuga, which lasts for 4,32,000 years. Before this, there was Dwapar Yuga, 8 lakh years, and before that, there was Treta Yuga. Thus, some 2 crore 5,000 years ago, Manu spoke the Bhagavad Gita to his disciple and son Maharaj Vishwakarma, the king of this earth planet. The age of current Manu is calculated to be some
305,300,000 years,
of which 120,400,000 years have passed. Accepting that before the birth of Manu, the Gita was spoken by Lord to his disciple, the son or Yoshua. A rough estimate is that Gita was spoken at least 120,400,000 years ago. And in the human society, it has been extant for 2 million years. It was re-spoken by Lord again to Arjuna about 5,000 years ago. That is the rough estimate of the history of Bhagavad Gita. According to Gita itself, according to the version of the speaker, Lord Shri Krishna, it was spoken to the son god Vidvan because he is also a Kshatriya and is the father of all Kshatriyas who are descendants of the sun god or the Surya Vamsha Kshatriya. Because Bhagavad Gita is as good as the Vedas, being spoken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, this knowledge is appreciated, superhuman. Since the Vedic instructions are accepted as they are without human interpretation, the Gita must be therefore accepted without mundane interpretation. The mundane angler may speculate on the Gita in their own way, but that is not Bhagavad Gita as it is. Therefore, Bhagavad Gita has to be accepted as it is from the recited succession. And it is described clearly that the Lord spoke to Sun God, the Sun God spoke to his son Manu, Manu spoke to his son Prabhu.
So Sri Varadev Vidyabhushan says, in the 4th chapter, the Lord, the son of Devaki, loudly proclaims the cause of his appearance, the eternal nature of his Leela, the presence of Jnana Yoga in prescribed actions, within karma, the presence of Jnana within karma, and the glories of Jnana above all. Having explained in the previous 2 chapters that Jnana and Karma Yoga are one because of having the same goal, he praises them by glorifying the lineage of this knowledge. The Lord said, I previously spoke this indestructible knowledge of Nishkama Karma leading to Jnana Yoga with the sun god Vidvan. He spoke it to Manu. Manu spoke it to Ikshvaku. So
I will write the first bit down, but I can use spiritual powers. So, I don't know. I represent it with A. No one. Karma. Jnana. Bhakti. Karma is predominant. Then comes Jnana, then comes Bhakti. This is what we call Karma or Karma Bhagavad. But then, when you realize the Jnana concept, you give more time to it. Then you return to and then these two will become supported. No, not one change. Karma will be like this. Then, people. So this is actually pertaining to the national. So this is manual Bhakti. This is another kind of manual Bhakti. But this is called Karma, this is called Jnana, this is called Bhakti. This is something which is previously was executed because they were capable of, they had that much of self-control that they could spend more time in the Jnana activities. Even Ashtanga Yoga was brought under the Jnana category because it involves sitting, withdrawing. So this was one way. Another simple way is first about this. About this. Another way of initially Karma Jnana Bhakti, then Jnana Bhakti, then Bhakti. That's all. Very easy for the mind because initially you just carry on dharma. Jnana Dharma and Bhakti Dharma both are common duties. So that is called sadharana, common law. So first step you execute just dharma in Vidvan. Second step you execute only sadharana dharma, common duties in Vidvan. Then within that common duties, you have Bhakti alone as spiritual duty. Third step you execute only spiritual common duties in Vidvan. Seems this is another way. But then to not execute the karma activities and to execute jnana and bhakti activities, this basically means it's like sannyas type. So in general in India they understand that, at least they understand the first thing. They understand this much. This is what is called more advanced, it's called less advanced. So this is another way. Bhakti is always has to be there. You don't execute devotion service and you don't have the desire to come to the ultimate goal of pure bhakti, it will not work. So that much is known to all. So that was the standard procedure, and that standard procedure of progressing from minimal bhakti to maximal bhakti, that Krishna had taught earlier on. So it is not some new thing that Krishna is teaching now. He had already and always he had it. Okay, text number 2.
Discipline stands for the discipline, the chain of discipline succession. And the same thing understood in that way. But in course of time, the succession was broken, and therefore the science as it is appears to be lost.
It is clearly stated that the Gita was especially meant for the saintly kings because they were to execute its purpose in ruling over the citizens. Certainly, Bhagavad Gita was never meant for the demoniac persons who would dissipate its value for no one's benefit and who would devise all types of interpretations according to personal whims. As soon as the original purpose was scattered by the motives of the unscrupulous commentators, there arose the need to re-establish the disciplic succession. 5,000 years ago, it was detected by the Lord himself that the disciplic succession was broken, and therefore he declared that the purpose of the Gita appeared to be lost. In the same way, at the present moment also, there are so many editions of the Gita, especially in English, but almost all of them are not according to authorized disciplic succession. There are innumerable interpretations rendered by different mundane scholars, but almost all of them do not accept the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, although they make a good business on the words of Sri Krishna. This spirit is demoniac because demons do not believe in God, but simply enjoy the property of the Supreme. Since there's a great need of an edition of the Gita in English, as it is received by the Parampara disciplic succession system, an attempt is made herewith to fulfill this great want. Bhagavad Gita accepted as it is a great boon to humanity. But if it is accepted as a treatise of philosophical speculations, it is simply a waste of time. So, this teaching of the Supreme Lord in Bhagavad Gita, this is not new. It was going on for a long period of time through Guru Shishya Parampara. And this itself was broken. It was broken. The sampradaya of this yoga in this world was broken by the influence of powerful time.
It broken means it was misstated. How to make broken?
Broken means the original purpose was lost. The disciplic lines became confused, diluted.
They speaking something else.
Yeah. They got mixed up, they missed the point. The wire is there, but it's no longer connected to the plug point. So then what is the use? You may show parampara, but then it's not connected with Zimba. Somewhere along the line, if there is some disconnect, then you're supposed to reconnect now. You're not doing it. You're simply following some people, that's all. Because it's my guru. All said my guru is everything. This is unnecessary bogus. So I want to help nobody. So when that happens, then Krishna has to come back and he has to restart. And Krishna does this all the time. Because he is more interested in reclaiming the living entities. So he does hundreds and thousands of, he is the greatest preacher. Most hardworking preacher is Krishna himself. We cannot equal Krishna in hard work for preaching. Again and again he does. Again he is given out Bhagavad Gita this time. But again, we should not misinterpret. The moment we misinterpret, then the effect will be lost. So if we don't understand something, leave it like that. That's all. I don't understand. Leave it like that. Not that we come forward and say something and then on top of it say this is Krishna's intention. That becomes a problem. Okay, text 3.
That very ancient science of the relationship with the Supreme is today told by me to you because you are my devotee as well as my friend and can therefore understand the transcendental mystery of this science.
Vasudevi Devoshna says, because you are my devotee, surrendered to me and a friend, I've spoken it to you and no one else, since it is the most secret, the greatest secret, and therefore should be concealed from others. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he notes, I spoke this eternal yoga to you today because you are a devotee and friend. Thus, though this highest yoga is most secret, I have taught it to you. Taking my teaching as all the Vedic scriptures, taking support of this yoga. Prabhupada has already commented on this verse in the introduction. There are two classes of men, namely the devotee and the demon. The Lord selected Arjuna as the recipient of this great science owing to his being a devotee of the Lord. But for the demon, it is not possible to understand this great mysterious science. There are a number of editions of this great book of knowledge. Some of them have commentaries by the devotees, and some of them have commentaries by the demons. Commentation by the devotees is real, whereas that of the demons is useless. Arjuna accepts Shri Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In any commentary on the Gita following the footsteps of Arjuna is real devotional service to the cause of this great science. The demoniac, however, do not accept Lord Krishna as he is. Instead, they concoct something about Krishna and mislead general readers about the path of Krishna's instructions. Here is a warning about such misleading paths. One should try to follow the disciplic succession from Arjuna and thus be benefited by this great science of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Notice that not only here in other places, Prabhupada has a very simple classification. Either you are a devotee or you are a demon. In today's ISKCON, they don't like this way of classification. They want to think there are devotees and there are friends of devotees. And then there's another category, potential friend of the devotee. Everybody is friend. With love all. But you notice how Prabhupada is classifying. Either you are a devotee or a demon. This is coming straight from scripture. It's coming from Bhagavad Gita. Like we will see, 16th chapter. Either you are divine or you are demonic. There's nothing in between. You can say there is some grayscale, but the grayscale is only composed of either black or white. Gray is only made up of black or white. It simply means this percentage divine, this percentage demonic. Demoniac is demoniac. What you can do about it? They are opposed to Krishna. They are opposed to Krishna. They are actually trying to hurt themselves because Krishna knows best what is good for us. And when you go against that, then you just go against your own self-interest. So we are not actually trained to be hateful of people, but we are trained to help them understand that you should not be hurting yourself and you should not be hurting others. Now, if they don't want to understand, then what you can do? Then at least you have to protect the innocent. Like, for instance, the whole world is very irritated with various terrorists. It doesn't mean that we have a special hatred toward terrorists. It is just that these terrorists are they're unnecessarily creating harm for innocent people. Therefore, we are talking about very violent measures to take to attack the terrorists. So like that, Prabhupada's remarks about non-devotees being demoniac should be understood in the same sense. These people, they cannot do good to themselves, they cannot do good to others also. So as long as I am like that, I'm a demon. It's not that particular Jivatma is demon. No Jivatma is demon. Jivatma is Tata Shastri, but pure, spiritual. But when I disobey Shastra, and I'm very convinced about it, and I'm trying to convince the whole world about it, then I'm a demon. When I'm obedient to Shastra, and I'm convinced about it, and I'm trying to convince others about it, then I'm divine. Avastha, it's only a state. I can choose to be divine, I can choose to be demonic. So when we say that is a demon, this is a devotee. Not that whole life he necessarily has to be a devotee, or that whole life he is necessarily a demon. A devotee can become a demon, demon can become a devotee also. It's a question of attitude and understanding. Whether you have the right attitude, right understanding, or wrong attitude, wrong understanding. So it's based on that we do this classification. But at any rate, that's a simple procedure on how you deal with the divine and how you deal with the demonic. We encourage the divine, we discourage the demoniac. If the demoniac take steps to proceed along their way of thinking, it will only destroy others because they don't think about how to do good to others. In the Vedic scriptures, there's a very simple formula that we find about what is punya and what is papa. Paropakara punyaya papaya parapedanam. Doing good to others is punya, and tormenting others is called papa, simple activity. So any activity that intentionally or unintentionally does good to others, it is considered to be a good activity. But for that, you need to examine karma vipaka. You need to see over lifetimes also, because some activity may seem very nice now, but eventually it can lead to great harm. Somebody is hungry So I go and buy some chicken roast and give it to him. Now that person, he was a vegetarian whole life. Now suddenly he's going to eat some chicken. Have I done good to him or bad to him? I've done. Initially, it may appear that on considering only today, it may appear that it's a good activity. But considering over the lifetimes, it's not a good activity. So you have to look at it the way doctors look at patients. When doctors look at patients, they don't look at it the way unprofessionals look at it. You see someone become agitated. When the doctor is looking, he's thinking how to solve that problem. The doctor has more compassion than this other person. It is, there are doctors who have more compassion, but they're very sober, quiet, and they carefully see, okay, the problem is not with this part of the body, the problem is some other part of the body, and it is caused due to a habit. That habit has to be changed. Only then this problem will be solved. So like that, we have to look at it very carefully.
Can we call Mayavadi demonic?
Mayavadis are demons, definitely. Asuras. 100% asuras. Mahasuras. They are actually described as Mahasuras. Madhvacharya talks about it in great detail. He explains that, the Mahabharata war that took place, before that, there are upper planetary systems, lower planetary systems. There are Daityas in the lower planetary systems, Devas in the upper planetary systems. They often have wars. And the Daityas always want to take over the whole planets. So when they could not do it, then at the time of Mahabharata, they had a very complex plan. Both the Devas and Daityas have the ability to empower. They can empower human beings to accomplish their goals. Both of them have that power. So the Daityas, they had the power to empower the Kauravas in order to take over the earth. They could not take over the Bhurbuva sword. They could not take over Bhuva and Swar. First they tried Swar and Bhuva. Then they are attempting Bhuva. This is at the time of the end of Dwapara. Okay, so that was their actual plan. So seeing that, the Devas also are partially incarnated in the form of the Pandavas and like that. So Duryodhana and company, they are empowered by the Daityas, whereas the Pandavas were empowered by the Devas. So what was happening at that moment was actually a quarrel between the demoniac forces and the divine forces. This is actually Mahabharata itself, it comes. There was a point when Duryodhana was defeated. Duryodhana was saved. There was a Ghosha Yatra. There was a time when the Pandavas were in exile. There was a quarrel between the Gandharvas. They had there was a fight, and then under the order of Yudhishthira, Duryodhana was protected. The Gandharvas were defeated. So that was a very great insult for Duryodhana. And Duryodhana wanted to kill himself. So he sat in yogic meditation in order to kill himself. So at that time, the Daityas pulled him to the lower planetary system and explained, actually, there's a plan. You people are just there in the front. We are having a real war going on. It's going on since many long divine periods. We want to take over. And the Pandavas and others are empowered by the Devas. So we are going to utilize you people for our purposes. So you don't die now. You die, it will become a problem for us, because from where we will get suitable. Yeah, we require, just like you need the right computer with the right configuration, right speed. So we also require the right type of Kshatriya with the right type of training and all that. So you don't die. We need you, we need the other, your brothers, and we need our own armies of people who have a taste for demoniac things. So that was how it was. But when Krishna and the Devas, when they defeated these forces, then Madhvacharya says, then they made a plan that now we will come in Kali Yuga, we will appear in the form of Brahmanas, and we will again try to take over the earth once again. But this time, not through the Kshatriyas. The Mahabharata war was through Kshatriyas. Pandavas are Kshatriyas, Kauravas are Kshatriyas. This time we'll work it out through Brahmanas. We will come through Venkaracharya and company. We'll speak some demonic philosophy. And in that way, we'll create a big mess. So then, on the other side, the Supreme Lord arranged for the Vaishnavas also to deal with it. So they are actually demonic. They're actually demonic. There's a book called Mani Manjari, written by Narayana Pandita, by Bhakti Shastri translated into Bengali also. Small little booklet in which this particular history is brought up. And then one by one, when they came, then finally Madhvacharya. Madhvacharya is Kali, incarnation of the demigod Kali.
But Sankaracharya incarnation seems.
So Lord Shiva is always with all these three.
So how will you become the representative of the demon?
No, Lord Shiva is on to this Daityas, they worship Lord Shiva only. Yeah. They are the universal deities. So they worship Lord Shiva only. Lord Shiva is a caretaker. Maniman. Maniman was, he appears to be the main person involved. So they were dealt with. There was a way to deal with it. So Mayavada philosophy is actually a demoniac philosophy. It's actually demonic.
The Maniman is the demon.
Maniman is one of the associates of Shiva. No? There are different names. It comes in that Dakshayagya. Maniman is one. Then Veerabhadra is another. There are all these interesting people. So Mayavada philosophy is definitely a demonic philosophy. Madhvacharya gives a simple logic. He says anyone who says I am the king, there is a criminal only. Suppose somebody goes to impersonates Narendra Modi digitally, the Prime Minister of India. Okay, he impersonates the Prime Minister of India, and he tries to use some bank account, tries to give some order, this, that. What is that? What is that? He'll be put in jail. So Madhvacharya also, what is this? You are not saying you are some demigod, this one, that one. You are saying you are Vishnu himself. You are saying you are the supreme absolute truth. The person should be put in jail. This is outrageously crazy philosophy. It is wrong. Even Ramanujacharya, he says it's just a very demoniac philosophy. What is this crazy idea? You are God himself. Okay. Yeah. Yes.
So the verse Rakshasa Kalina Shritya, is it out there?
That I don't know, but in general, we know that the Rakshasas will take birth in Brahmin families. Is this about that? I don't know. In general, there are plenty of Brahmins who are quite Rakshasic. Born in Brahmin families. They did a lot of nonsense. They're getting their payment. Really, very, very corrupt. Very corrupt. I always keep thinking that if we also become corrupt, then we will also be punished. Like those who are born in Brahmin families in India now, are severely deprivileged and criticized. In common modern culture, they are considered to be foolish people. Just foolish. So things should not become so worse that ISKCON devotee will be considered a joker in a movie. Video. That's what the version of Tilak, the chants are Krishna. Should not be that. If we are all very strict, then we will be respected. In India, Buddhists are portrayed in Indian narrations. Buddhists are portrayed as very peaceful people. They are do-gooders. They do good. People have a general conception that some good people. They don't harm. So, if we simply execute Prabhupada's own instructions and we do what he has said to be done, then people will understand. If we don't, then we will have them. Okay, so we'll stop with that. We'll see you tomorrow. Tomorrow, only one class. Tomorrow's proper disappearance, no? Yes. So 7:30 we have a class, that's all. No other classes tomorrow.